Last week I was in Tesco's and I was down the cleaning section when I discovered they have their very own brand of car cleaning chemicals. And I thought, well, since everybody enjoyed the little video I filmed a few weeks ago, then I thought, why not put this rival brand to the test? Tesco's are making moves in the budget car cleaning sector. And no, this isn't going to be aimed at your pro detailers by any means. However, there is a rapid rise of cheap and cheerful car care options out there for the beginner. So I purchased 5 different items in Tesco's and there was a 6th one, but we'll get to that a bit later on. Now what we have here is the basics, the bare essentials if you wanted to clean your car. So we're not going to be getting too in depth, we're going to keep it nice and simple today. Let's start off with item number 1, the shampoo and wax. Now what we have here is 2 litres, which I paid £4 for, which I think is pretty good value for money. And it does also say on the label that it's got added wax for extra protection. The only downside is it doesn't tell you how long that extra protection is going to last. Next up we have the glass cleaner and insect remover. Now this really is just a glass cleaner and all glass cleaners can tackle those bug splats. But what they're saying is because of whatever ingredients are inside this, it's going to be safe to use on your paintwork. So we will test it out in a few scenarios later on, but I don't think you should treat this in the same way that I treated the little bug remover. So in that video where I covered the bug remover, I used it on the lower third of the vehicle and it acted like a pre-wash, but it did a fairly decent job. With this, however, I just think this is a glass cleaner and a glass cleaner only, but we'll find out later. Now we're going to move on to the tyre and bumper shine. So I used to use products like this back in the day. So when I first started car cleaning, I literally bought everything in bulk from Poundland and it all came in cans like this. It wasn't the best stuff ever, I'll be honest, but still, at least I could get myself off the ground and it's kind of how I've got here today. If it wasn't for me buying products in a can like this, I don't even think I'd be standing here right now. But it was in the previous video when I featured the Goodyear bumper restorer that it didn't really do very well. Actually, when I used a tyre dressing, that was also pretty terrible. So maybe, just maybe, this could be better. So that's the exterior. What about the interior? Well, we got a dashboard cleaner here with a citrus scent. So this is a foam spray that you would apply onto your plastics. But I've got to read off some of the reviews here because they're just brilliant. One Tesco customer said, it's a paint stripper, not a dashboard cleaner. Yeah, looking forward to this one. Another one says, you may as well just use soap and water. However, there was a really positive review where one Tesco customer went on to say it was great. So I've got a few mixed reviews on this one. Not quite sure how it's going to go. But anyway, let's just put that one to the side and move on to the upholstery cleaner. Now, I've used many foaming upholstery cleaners in the past, and you know what? They've all been really good. I actually like the idea behind it because when it foams up, when you have them in a can, you get this it looks like Gillette shaving gel. You spray it into the fabric and it's the foam that lifts the dirt out of the surface. Now, if you've got a scrub pad or a vacuum cleaner, you'd simply wipe over it, give it a vacuum, and normally that's all you really need to clean up some of these stains. So Tesco's go on to say it's safe on most upholstery and fabrics, so it doesn't really say anything about plastic, so I'm very curious to see how that might go. Like I said before, we got this dashboard cleaner, which is a bit of an interesting one to try out, so I may do a little comparison later on, but look, that's the basics. I think it's about time we get outside and give the car a clean. Before we tackle any filthy jobs, it's always a good idea to get prepared beforehand, and I'm adding a few other items to the mix to speed up the process, but don't worry, it won't interfere with the results. This Audi A6 is having a bit of a hard life, and I'm trying not to keep it too clean inside because I have a big how-to guide coming out very soon, where I'm going to be breaking down everything you need to know about interior cleaning. So if you're a beginner or just curious, make sure you subscribe so you're ready for the big video. I started off by following the guidelines for the shampoo and I foamed up the bucket to see how long the bubbles would last with warm water. And we're just going to quickly whiz through the wheels here as they don't really play a major part in this video, as we only really have 2 exterior items that we're going to be featuring, which are the shampoo and the glass cleaner. We'll actually make it 3 because I found a bonus product which I managed to pick up, and it's Carplan's Rapid Dirt Shifter, which is basically their attempt at a pre-wash. Mind you, this was one of the most expensive items at £7, but will it be any good? Well, before we get to that answer, you'll find that you can use this on a bit of everything as far as the exterior is concerned. And it works on engine bays too. Did it remove the surface dirt? Well, yes, sort of. The road film was still there, but you can't solely rely on this to do 100% of the work. On the plus side though, it did remove all the splattered bugs. The next task was to use the snow foam, and this is an old car with awful paint and 200,000+ miles. So is this really necessary? Well, I've got to be honest with you, no, not really. Based on what I just mentioned, this isn't something that demands a showroom shine because it's well past it. However, snow foam has benefits like reducing the risk of scratches, getting in all the gaps and grills and arches, and it will do a fair job assisting with the clean. Once the foam was rinsed off, it was time to try out the Tesco shampoo for the first time. And I wasn't hoping for much considering it cost me just £4. And the first thing I noticed was the suds, which were just non-existent. Is that it? There is no bubbles on this. I gave it a few attempts and foamed up the bucket once again, and it still didn't work either. Yeah, this isn't great, is it? Look, I'll go over it again. There's just nothing coming out. No bubbles, no suds. And I know that's not everything, but really, you need a bit of lubrication. Just to note, this car had previously been protected with a ceramic detailer a while ago, but it wasn't a ceramic coating, so I understand that can have an effect on the performance. So I opted to add another 70ml, and as expected it was vastly better, and I wish they would just be realistic with the dilutions, because it's clearly a very cheap shampoo for the consumer at 2 litres, so even if you went for something like 100ml per wash, it's still going to be 20 washes for £4, which works out at 20p every time you wash your car. So for me, I'd rather use a bit more and get a better clean from it. And another plus point, I didn't see any streaks at all. It's really not a bad shampoo, but you've got to make sure you add a little bit extra chemical into the bucket. This time of the year, it's difficult to get around the entire car without it drying in places. But thankfully, I managed to get it all rinsed off and back inside to dry. Oh wow, it's pretty obvious to me that this paintwork has some serious issues. But with your health, sometimes it's not as easy to see. So I'd just like to give you a quick update on something that's been going on, because recently on the channel I opened up about my health and I'm constantly feeling burnt out, I'm tired, I'm weak, I'm stressed, and I just feel that I've lost that spark that I once had and I need to get it back as soon as possible. So I've been doing a little bit of research and it turns out there's a high possibility this may have something to do with low testosterone. Now, low testosterone can affect 1 in 4 males over the age of 30 and most of them will go completely undiagnosed. Symptoms of low testosterone are lack of focus, weight gain and low energy, to name a few. Similar to what I'm going through. That's why I've decided to check my testosterone levels with an at-home blood test kit from Manual. Manual is a hassle-free way of getting clarity on your symptoms without the trouble of trying to get a doctor's appointment. It's delivered straight to your door and it's easy to use. All you need to do is collect a small blood sample and then pop it back in the post with the prepaid label. They understand that your health is something that may be personal to you, so they put it in discreet packaging to avoid any of those awkward conversations if it's not something you really want to be talking about. In just a few days, you'll be able to track your results online, and if your testosterone levels are low, then they will have options to get you back on track, and I'll let you know how I get on with mine very soon. If any of these symptoms sound like something you're experiencing, then now will be a good time to get yourself checked out. And you can save 45% off with promo code EPIC45 at the checkout. Right, I better get back to work. Next, it was time to test the glass cleaner. Really important to get these little scum lines around here. It just finishes off the glass nicely, but it does take a few attempts because you've got to get the glass straight back up again. But it's totally worth it. So if you look around the edges here, it's all nice and tidy, and I think that's really important when you clean your glass, especially if you're cleaning a car for somebody else. But I've got a few scratches here, but there's nothing I can really do about that at the moment. But all in all, I think that's really nice. As far as glass cleaners go, I've been on a roll with many of the cheaper brands recently, and this was another one I could honestly recommend. Just make sure you got some quality cloths to hand. Right, that's the glass done. Let's move on to the tyres. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's having really greasy, shiny looking tyres. But it's funny because in the previous video, I asked you to let me know in the comments which do you prefer, the matte finish or the glossy finish. And the majority of you, it was actually quite overwhelming, said that you prefer it looking really glossy and shiny. So you might be in for a real treat today because I've got a tyre dressing in a can. Let's see how this one performs. Some people love using tyre dressings in a can. Now, personally, I'm not a fan, but I totally get the supporting arguments for using it. One of them being it's less mess. because you don't need any brushes or applicator sponges. You just spray freely without worrying about making a mess. I'm just going to be going over these tyres lightly. The last thing I want to do is go a bit too much over each tyre, because then it can go quite patchy. The best thing to do is go over it lightly once, let it penetrate into the tyre, let it settle, and then go over it one more time. Now, the reason I'm anti-tyre dressing in a can is you have no control over where the spray goes. But if you're working inside, it also fills up the studio with fumes, so it's important you have good ventilation wherever you work. Stinks. So I've just gone over the tyres and I'm going to leave them for a few moments before spraying again for the second time. But one thing I have noticed is just how much of this chemical I've got through. I've got about half a can left, which means that if you have got big chunky tyres and you've got a few jobs to get through, then I don't know whether 1 or 2 cans is even going to be enough. There was another reason why I didn't like using it, and it was the sheer time it took to apply it. Because it's such a fine mist, you had to keep going over and over again, so it took just as long as using a brush. With the tyres complete, I can now jump onto the upholstery cleaner. So what you can see here on the back seat, we got a few scruffy marks. I've got a few little stains here on the fabric, and the plastic is really just badly scuffed up and ruined, but it is quite an old car, so we're just going to try and make the best of this bad situation we have. Now, the first thing I want to do is start off with the upholstery cleaner. We've got some spilt coffee or something in here. It's nothing really nasty, but I think we should be able to tackle it with the foam spray. We're going to spray it, let it dwell, let the foam bring all the dirt out, and then we're just going to wipe it away. Well, actually, we may need to agitate it with a scrub pad, but I'm going to see how far we go with one attempt of just wiping it away with a cloth. Always give it a good shake first. So now what you're going to see is that foam is going to lift all the dirt out, well, the best it can anyway. And I really like these types of cleaners. I think they're just brilliant because they're just so convenient. You can grab and go. Don't need to worry about topping up chemicals. Once you're done, you're done. So what's happening is it's starting to dissolve. So once that's gone, we're just going to take a microfiber cloth and give it a quick wipe. Well, I've not touched it yet. You can barely see where it is. But if that was just left to dry, you'd soon see that ring appear again. So we're going to still wipe it and see what we're left with. We're just going to leave the seat to dry naturally, but in the meantime, we're going to work on the plastic. So we've got a dashboard cleaner here. It says citrus, but the only thing citrus about it is the fragrance that they've added to the can. So it's not a citrus-based cleaner, it's just a citrus fragrance. This was another fruity foaming product, but it wasn't super thick. And using sprays like this can have their drawbacks. I've just made a terrible mistake, and I'm wondering how many of you have actually seen what I've just done. Watch what happens. I've got my cleaner, I'm spraying it onto the plastics, but can you notice anything from what I've just done? It's got onto the glass. Little particles of foam have sprayed onto the glass. Now, if I'm to take another cloth and wipe the glass, all I'm going to be doing is smearing this dashboard cleaner over that window, so that means I could have a really streaky film. Alternatively, if you had cleaner glass and you want to be very careful, take a scrub pad, spray it onto the scrub pad and work it in. Sometimes it is nice just to grab something and get spraying, and because it comes in a can, you do get this nice even distribution when it comes out. You don't have to adjust the triggers or anything like that. It's just ready to go, and I think that's why I kind of like it. There we go. What do you reckon? I carried on with the interior cleaner, and a key part of this clean was having a scrub pad. These fibres are strong enough to get into the grooves and soft enough not to do any damage on the hard plastics. Another strong point is just how quickly you can fly around the vehicle in one go. Anyway, back to the cleaner, and I just wanted to find out whether this really does strip the paint. With the dashboard, you've got to be careful not to spray it everywhere, so don't go sticking your can in like this and just go crazy with it, because at the end of the day, the last thing you want to be doing is spraying any chemicals that could potentially stick onto that windscreen, because if they do and you go to wipe it with a cloth, say because you've got the sun in your eyes and you can't really see where you're going, it will become even worse and it could potentially be dangerous. So just have to be very careful with dashboard cleaning. I would really only recommend spraying onto a scrub pad or a cloth and then just applying it over the plastics. I think you can get away with the steering wheel if you angle it down, but anything else like the screens here, try not to do it. I like this cleaner. Out of everything I've tested, I'm enjoying using this. I wouldn't say that you get a desirable finish. It doesn't leave you with any wow factor. It just cleans the surface, and it's quite light. I don't think this would be suitable for anything that deep cleans. As regards to stripping the paint off the dials, And this, no chance, not on this. I think the guy who commented that has probably had a really bad day and a bad experience because he's worked on a very old, tired car. So I think if they were to say it was a brand new car and it had just been freshly painted, then I really would raise some concerns. But I'll try it again on another dial because I don't think that for a second. What I'm doing here is something I don't really advise, as you could damage the buttons internally. And this is a very old car, so I'm happy to take my chances for the sake of the test. You'd have to scrub pretty hard with a scrub pad if you were to take any of the lettering off. I just don't see it. It wasn't perfect, but for a budget cleaner, you could do a lot worse. If I was to be slightly critical, one thing I would say is that when you touch the steering wheel or any of the components I've just cleaned, it does feel, I wouldn't say sticky is the word I want to use. I've gone over it again with a dry cloth just to really buff it up, but it just feels ever so slightly clammy. Anyway, let's check out the upholstery because the cleaner will be well and truly dry by now. I can see something there, you know, I can see. Now that could just be a clean circle where everything else is dirty. That could be one argument. Or another one is there could still be some moisture in there, some dampness. I decided to go over the entire seat this time just to see whether it would dry patchy. And I was feeling confident this wouldn't let me down. Despite the strong smell, I'm really impressed with this. I love it. But there again, I haven't really ever tried a foam cleaner that has underperformed. They've all been pretty good. Maybe it's because it's an easy product to make. I don't know. But I do like it. That's great. So let me give you a cost breakdown. So for these three items here, the glass cleaner, upholstery cleaner and dashboard cleaner, they were £2.50 each. The Tyre Shine was £3, the shampoo was £4 and the pre-wash was just £7. Now when we add it all together, that works out at £21, which considering a cheap and cheerful car cleaning kit is normally around £20 to £25, I think this is pretty good value for money. Now all of these items are going to be subject to availability, so it depends on what store you're in, on what day, that would determine whether any of this is going to be in stock for you. But you may find that if these aren't in stock, there will be some other brands, especially quite a few from Carplan. Now you might be wondering why I didn't bother featuring any of their other items because they are featured in Tesco's. Well, I've already done a massive video covering their Demon Shine Big Car Care Kit, and you can go and watch it right here.